Howdy ESSM 406. Welcome to our next unit. This unit is all about introducing you to the idea of communities and collaboration for solving environmental problems. So we have lots of different policy tools out there. So last unit we talked a lot about prescriptive regulation or command and control, both are pretty much the same. We also looked at market-based solutions like property rights, taxes, subsidies, cap and trade programs. Now, all of those are based on the government coming in and doing something to solve the problem. So if we look at this on the political spectrum, if you look at the left-leaning, more of the Democratic, that's when they're looking for governments to come in and do more of the controlling. Whereas right wants to come in and be more market-based. But that's also still government controlling because the government, as we talked about before, is part of the markets. But that's more where the Republicans lie. Market-based solutions versus government solutions. But that's all about the government. Now, I've warned you before about thinking in these terms of right and left too much because they can shift over time. And political labels don't really solve a lot of problems. And it can be really misleading. What I want to talk about today is something that's kind of outside of that and looking at communities and collaboration, which brings together a bunch of different policy solutions, and they're not all closely related, but they're outside of the government. And the basic idea that I want you to think about for this unit is that it's not always necessary for the government to come in and solve the problem for the people. Sometimes people can come up with a solution to solve the problem themselves. And so I have some readings in there for you. So some of the readings that we're looking at these ideas are Arun Agrawal, Elinor Ostrom, Sabelfung and Karkanian, Andrews and Johnson. Those all give you really great examples about the different ways local people have organized themselves to solve government problems. So like some of you are looking at problems in big cities like Houston or San Antonio, but then others of you are working in smaller communities or the wildland urban interface or small cities' water systems. And sometimes citizens working together can solve their problems. And you can relate your issue to one of the issues in those readings. That'll help give you some ideas about how to frame your paper or your memo for this particular unit. Now, it's really important to understand that this organizing doesn't always happen because there's no government, and it's not always an alternative to government. In fact, in some ways, it's brought about by government, and sometimes government will mandate a change to happen, and like a command and control or a prescriptive regulation, and how we deal with it is on some sort of community level collaboration. Not oppositions, just different ways of solving the problems. Now, the final readings that I've given you are a couple articles about how they bring collaboration. And these articles are by Inez Imbor and Gregory et al. So those will give you some examples for the collaboration. Now, in our next videos for this section, we're going to go a little bit more in depth on each of the different community collaboration and thinking of the different policy tools that communities and people can use to solve their own problems.